I am beyond disappointed in this new premium tank within World of Tanks console, and today's video is of course looking at the T41E1, the M41 Walker Bulldog auto-loading premium version. That, to all intents and purposes, it's not terrible, but there are a lot of problems with this tank, so if you're thinking about purchasing this as the ultimate season pass, you might want to hold off, at least for the minute. So what we're going to actually cover in today's video, well, of course, the costing of the ultimate season pass, and so far whether I think it's worth it, along with the tank itself. So really important that we give a full review of this one, since a lot of people are probably thinking about buying it. It is of course part of this season. You've got 8 weeks of the season, so if you want kind of new World War II content, this is kind of where it comes in, and there are some big problems with it, at least from what I can tell, and the key problems come with the fact that yes, the 10-shot autoloader with 1700 combined total damage if you can manage to pen every single shot may seem really amazing. In reality, this tank is very, very annoying to actually play, because effectively you've got a 2-second intra-clip reload between every single one of your shots, which means that if you actually want to fully unload your clip, it takes you 20 seconds to do so. So that is from when you fire the first shell. In fact, it probably takes less than that. I think it's like 18 seconds if you factor in the first shell, but nonetheless, it genuinely takes you 18 seconds to fully unload your clip, of which time you've probably bounced maybe 25% of them. Maybe you miss a further 25%, so you could end up actually only hitting 50% of your shots. And because you've been spending 20 seconds unloading your clip, you've got to try and keep moving and not take any shots during that period of time. And if you've seen the T41E1 or the M41 Walker Bulldog, or played the Sheridan, or you've played the T49, everyone knows that the American light tanks are basically the size of medium tanks and have absolutely no armor. So trying to evade shells in this vehicle is very, very difficult unless you are kind of moving sideways towards someone that's auto-aiming you, or alternatively if maybe they just don't have the best aim in the game. But then again, most light tanks would have the exact same. It's just that this one is basically so big that it makes it very hard for the opponent to miss, even when they are auto-aiming. Any other light tank duels that you may have, a lot of the time the other light tanks will just still be able to hit you every single time. One good thing that I can kind of mention about the tank, because it's not all bad, is the fact that you can get a kind of a really nice rhythm going if you can manage to get off your shots in one go. And you're seeing here what happens when you can get some shots off. The accuracy of the tank playing a pretty annoying role for all intents and purposes here, and you end up bouncing quite a few. But getting back to what I was trying to say is that the standard rounds of this vehicle are APCR. Now you might think, oh brilliant, they're going to have super high penetration. No, they have exactly the same penetration as the standard Bulldog, as with the premium penetration as well. They're basically all the exact same with this vehicle. The only difference is that it basically gets more, basically worse DPM, but gets this 10-shot autoloader. And to be honest with you, the 10-shot autoloader might sound really fun to be playing with a tank that can dish out, 1,700 damage at tier 8 with a light tank, but remember, this thing very rarely is able to dish out all of that damage, but in that 18-second period, because people move, tanks move in the game, and so your already bad damage per minute goes even worse. And when you spend 20 seconds fully reloading your tank, another 18 seconds to actually dish out the damage, the damage per minute really does suck pretty badly. I'm not saying it's the worst, but it isn't like a nice effective damage per minute, which is what I always badger on about on World of Tanks, is the effective damage per minute, because you can have 7,000 1000 damage per minute, but if it comes from reloading every like half a second or something like that, how many opportunities can you be constantly firing at a target for an entire minute? It's a lot less than if you only had to hit 4 shots, where you had to get into 4 opportunity places, locations, to be able to deal the damage by having more alpha damage effectively. So that's kind of what the premise is, and it's kind of like this with this vehicle. It's really annoying to be able to consistently deal damage. I'm sure many of you will know that if you've played the tank. I'm not saying that it's terrible. It's certainly not terrible. This tank is not like an absolute garbage premium. But if you're wanting it to think it's going to be as good as the M41 Walker Bulldog was when it was first released, that is just not the case, unfortunately, which is disappointing for me, and I'm sure you as well if you've played World of Tanks for a long period of time. But regardless, you can see what happens when enemy light tanks come towards you. They basically just absolutely troll you, and as soon as you're out, you are basically a massive fat sitting duck where people are just not going to miss. And even on the move, a lot of the vehicles that are going to be hitting you are going to be able to hit you because of the size of your tank. And yes, this tank is fairly fast. It can go 70 kilometers an hour. It's not necessarily the worst, but yeah, you can see in the defeat screen in just a second here what we actually managed to do in that game, how much you earn as well, because it's kind of important how much silver you're earning as well, and whether you can still make money considering the low penetration of the standard rounds in this vehicle being only 171 and the premium only being 212, I believe. And you can see here we made 3,174 damage and we only made 39,000. So if you're after Cold War vehicles that will earn you like 10 times as much in the same amount of time, then yeah, you'd be better off playing Cold War for your silver. This is definitely not a silver earner. You spend way too much on consumables, premium ammunition, and in general trying to earn money in this vehicle is quite difficult. But overall, let's take a look at the next gameplay as well. Now, it's not all doom and gloom for the T41E1. There are some really, really nice moments you can have in this vehicle, and in the right scenario you can make this tank really work quite hard, and you can have the results that you probably really want to, where you're able to push forward, where you're able to use it in its full entirety, where you can kind of go towards a lot of the opponents fully aggressively, where you can just deal a lot of damage super quickly. And you can see here, taking the early position with this tank, very easy. When you can go 70 kilometers an hour, there's no surprise that you'll be able to get into a nice position like this at the beginning, just to get some early damage. Of course, you have to be very careful and mindful of tanks when they're coming towards you. You'll note that the acceleration of this vehicle and the turning, especially when you take the handbrake or use the handbrake, you can really turn super quickly and re-engage a target from a different direction, which is handy. You can definitely utilize that. Am I saying that the gameplays I've had in this tank are necessarily like the pinnacle of playing this tank? Absolutely not. This vehicle is not in any way, shape or form being played to the top pinnacle tier here. Having a few rough games in this vehicle, but nonetheless, we've got a good opinion on it. You know, you can tell very early on whether this tank is going to be super good or whether it's kind of one of those mediocre tanks. Of course, let me know in the opinions down below. I may be completely wrong. I might think that this is useless, or not necessarily useless, but mediocre, and you guys might be thinking this is the best light tank that's been introduced in a long time. But I just don't feel, with the reload, the intricate reload, and just in general how this tank plays, it is the kind of the nicest light tank to play. And there's a lot of problems that I found whilst playing it that I just don't think are going to be able to beat a lot of the other light tanks in the game. You look at things like the Batchat 12T that has the higher alpha, reloads in like 15 seconds I think, and has like 800 damage, much more effective DPM. It just kind of outclasses this. It's smaller, and I just feel like it's going to be the one that's going to be able to consistently deal more damage. But this replay in particular is trying to showcase what happens even in a top tier game, because remember this does go up against tier 8s, which is super annoying. I'm sure many of you have had the pleasure of playing up against a lot of tier 10s at the moment, especially with all of the operations going on surrounding tier 10s, and especially playing tier 10 light tanks. Playing light tanks at the moment is probably the worst because of the light tank operation that's been going on, so you probably are hating on light tanks really badly, and they are being played terribly as well, may I like to add. Some people just YOLOing in at the beginning of the game just to take 90% of the hit points off of the enemy light tank, and then literally subsequently getting taken out straight away. Obviously it's not worth it, but people do it all of the time. I've had it in this tank, and because this is such a boxy one, you do end up getting hit a lot by enemy light tanks, which means that if people do YOLO you do kind of get punished for doing not really anything wrong other than the fact of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's super annoying, but you can still combat it by positioning yourself in the best places. But you can see we're going towards this little vanguard, using the kind of key of this tank being that because it is kind of medium size, it has the kind of power to be able to crash into a lot of the other light tanks in the game, and they didn't really have a chance, to be honest with you, when you're fully ramming a vanguard in a medium slash a very light medium, essentially is what the M41 Walker Bulldog is, and all of the American light tanks. But you can see us now, because we were at the back, because we were kind of missing the action, we've been able to still get to the front line, and we're going to be able to push out some damage potentially using the autoloader. And this is where the autoloader comes in massively. If you're having a terrible game, or you're having a game where you maybe just didn't do as well as you thought you might have, this is when the autoloader comes into fashion, where you just go off in at the end of the game after some of these tanks. And now you're seeing what happens when you fully auto-aim. Just trying to take out the Gui, and we managed to bounce 2 rounds off of him before finally he gets taken out. But yeah, the problem with auto-aiming, the problem with kind of this tank in general, is the penetration, even the premium penetration, and of course the fact that it's so boxy and pretty big. You can see even here, compared to the E75, it is smaller, but not that smaller considering it is a light tank. But nonetheless, hopefully this gave you a good indication of the vehicle. Let's give my final opinion on it, whether you should purchase it. If you are really into your light tanks and you really enjoy playing a variety of different light tanks, this gives you the opportunity to do that, and at the cost that is going to set you back, it is not a bad price. If you want a really competitive light tank, or you want a really competitive tank that's going to give you silver, or if you want to just consistently do really well, this probably isn't the best tank for you, because there are plenty of other ones, and other ones that don't cost you any money as well, like the Batchat 12T, and I would highly recommend just playing those first, getting the tester, whether you like the auto-loading function anyway, or alternatively play the actual tech tree version of this tank, the M41 Walker Bulldog, which is the tier 8 American, that just doesn't have the autoloader, and you'll get a very good indication as to whether you think that just because it has an autoloader the tank is going to be good. But there we go. Hopefully it gave a good summary. Of course, let me know your thoughts, and let everyone else know your thoughts as well, because your opinion matters just as much as mine. And of course, as I say in every single review video, it is just my opinion. You might be completely different, and there is nothing wrong with that. Leave your comments, and we'll see a good discussion in the comment section down below, as always. And once again, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to check out the Marks of Excellence glitch and news regarding that kind of whole fiasco that came on World of Tanks console in the left hand side. And don't forget the season info covering everything that you need to know on the right hand side, which is all of the update news, everything that came in with the update, and the operations and stuff you can harness yourself, and of course a review of the season pass in that one. So check out either of those, and I hope I see you there. Goodbye.